Welcome to my studio. My name's Tamara Grant. I'm a painter and mixed media artist. I live in beautiful British Columbia, Canada. Recently, I attended a workshop in New York City put on by an artist whose work I love and admire. And I came home and had spent the last 3 weeks incorporating some of those ideas into my own practice. I'd really like to share those paintings with you and talk a little bit about how the work is evolving as a consequence of that experience. Come on. So I'd like to start by showing you the painting that I worked on in the workshop when I was meticulously following instructions and using the methodology that the teacher shared with us, using colors that were available at the workshop, not necessarily the colors that I would gravitate towards myself in my own studio space, and using paintbrushes and acrylic mediums to thin the paint so I could get these lovely glazed layers. Some of the things that I love about this working canvas are the soft edges, along with those harder edges where they meet, the layers of translucent paint, one over the other, the unpredictability of what happens when you apply a thin layer of paint over another thin layer of paint, and how wonderful it was to actually grab the next color that appealed to me and apply it to the canvas without worrying too much about whether my color palette was harmonized. Now, I brought this painting home after cutting it off the stretcher bars, so it's taped to a piece of cardboard in my studio, and I'm just using it as a reference piece at this point to kind of reflect on what I liked about the methods I was using and what I didn't particularly like and how I might transfer them to future work of my own. What I really liked, that pink, you're going to see it again. So here's the first new piece that I've created since coming home from the workshop. It measures 16 by 20 inches. It's on canvas, and it's got a lot of really interesting effects, organic, subtle shading, organic shapes, some really, really gorgeous layering. You'll notice some of my more usual marks, the cutting in to the thick paint, the straight lines that I like. You might also notice there are some square elements or rectangular elements to the piece. There's some collage underneath, which is a way that I like to start. And then just some really beautiful little moments of underpainting that are peeking through where I've scrubbed back into the top layers of the paint. So I feel like this piece is successful for several reasons. One, I've achieved that level of translucency and layering that I was looking for while keeping some more opaque shapes. Two, there's a sense of time and work in the piece. You can see the scratching through, the scraping. It looks almost distressed. And three, I've used some colors that I just started to adore at that workshop, that fluorescent pink and fluorescent orange. Now, because I'm completely incapable of working only on one painting at a time, I got to a certain point with that first one and started another. So once again, this has collage elements underneath that you cannot see. It has a bit of an underpainting with scrapey lines of black gesso. So I'm bringing in some of my more comfortable elements. You can see those straight lines here, the scrapes that I typically put in paintings. And the shapes this time remind me very much of jellyfish. I don't know what I was thinking when I was painting them, but I'm absolutely in love with these little kidney bean, jelly bean shapes, and I really love how they've layered on top of each other. Some bits that I particularly like are these hard edges of the paint where I've let thick paint dry over top of thinner edges, and then the scraping through. You can see the color underneath coming through while I'm leaving a bit of opaque paint as well, and some really, really gorgeous glowing effects by using that fluorescent pink and mixing it with orange and yellow. So this piece is about I would say 80% done. I'm very pleased with where it is right now. It needs a little bit more compositional structure, which I will be working on in the days ahead. I did get a little stuck though before I moved on with this piece, so I started a third painting. This third piece, it has a lot in common with the second piece that you just saw. I'm still with the jelly bean or jellyfish shapes, but I've added more of a glowing orange, and you'll notice the color palette has shifted more towards the blues and purples. I'm really not sure where this is going to go. It's not nearly as far along. There's a lot of underpainting left there that you can see. And when I say underpainting, I mean these are just patches of color that I applied to the canvas to create something to work with. You can see them here as well. I need some more shapes. I need some more layers. I need some more depths. Some more depth, not depths. But it's coming. And if I show them to you all together, you'll be able to see there's a theme emerging in this work. That they're related, and they certainly are talking to one another, but they're all standing on their own. So that's what's going on in my studio these days. I would love to hear your thoughts about the new work. If you're an artist and you've ever similarly been in a situation like this where you have new ideas that are affecting your work and you're trying to make it your own and not just do poor imitations of whoever taught you those ideas, I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message, reply below. Subscribe to this channel while you're here because you never know when I'm going to pop something else interesting in.